Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Next, we will have a brief overview of the major theories that explain the phenomenon of foreign direct investment. As I said earlier, I will be giving you a brief overview of these theories just to introduce you to those concepts. If you are interested, please follow any standard textbook on international trade and you will be able to get a broader set of idea about these theories. To begin with, one of the most prominent theory in this case, in order to develop the process of foreign direct investment, that means the investment which undertake place from an enterprise located in one country to that of the another, explained through the product life cycle. Now this Raymond Vernon has developed this product life cycle theory. There are three main points related to that. First of all, he talks about the products which could be at a different stages. If you remember our discussion during the stylized facts on innovation, we have talked about the product development stages, which included the new product or the product which has now more matured or which has become further, and the process to that has also become more standardized. Apart from that, the internationalization processes have also been identified into different stages, which includes local innovation in production, product standardization, export, international production and price competition, and import. Now these classes of products, they are related to the different stages in the product development, starting from introduction to growth to maturity and reaching out to saturation and finally becoming obsolete. Now I know right now these terms are becoming very confusing, but what the authors have done in this particular paper, they have given an example of the American economy. There they have pointed out, and in fact if you look at around the various products which we use nowadays, they might have initially been innovated in certain economies. Over a period of a time, those products become much more standardized. The initial production that happens is focused in those economies. Over a period of a time, what we have seen is that the product initially begin to get exported to other economies. Once it gets exported to another economies, the other economies also learn from it, they experience that particular product, and as a result, they become more attuned to that particular product. However, they also learn the production processes and they might also get into the production of that processes. So as a result, you may find either the same companies producing across countries, or they might enter into joint ventures or undertake foreign direct investment to continue the production of that particular product. It will this process will go on till a particular stage where this product is rather very standardized. The competition in that particular product is more related to prices, and as a result, an economy which has initially introduced the product and the innovative product that they have done, it would rather be imported from the other economies. The most important example which is given in this case is of the photocopier, which was developed in 1960 by Xerox. What we have seen that after its initial introduction, it started the production. The Xerox actually entered into a joint venture called as Fuji Xerox in Japan and ran Xerox in Great Britain. And then what happened was that the patent also expired after 20 years. So the competition began to emerge from economies including Japan and Italy when you saw the rise of the companies like Canon and Olivetti. As a result, that the competition now began to come in the price. That means how to have a reduced price of that particular product. So that is from one advanced economy to the other advanced economy. The movement happened from America to Japan. Later, even within Japan, you will find that over a period of a time, the Japanese companies also shifted the production to other developing economies like that of Thailand. So we will try and understand this particular process in the diagram given from Professor Raymond. So here what happens is we will start with the initial country, which is rather advanced. Then we move on to other advanced economies, and then we moved on to the developing country. So here you may have the developed economy, then you may have other developed economies or other advanced economies. Later, other developing economies. So on the x-axis you have the time duration, and then here you have the exports and the imports and the domestic consumption. So there what you see is, it's like, let us divide them into the 3 stages. So here let us say the product like Xerox initially came in an economy like America, where it is now being produced and consumed also by them. Production, and then you have a curve for their domestic consumption. So there you will find that initially the production and the consumption are same. Over a period of a time, it actually diverges. So where is this divergence going now? So you find that the production is more than the domestic consumption. That means now this amount is being exported to the other economies, right? So amount is actually now being exported to the other countries. That is fine. So these are their exports and these are their imports. Fine. Now what is happening in the other developed economies? What we find here, like here you have to identify this point of a divergence, where you see that now the initial economy which introduced the product is rather producing more and consuming less. So that means, picking up from that point, you have now a point where you will see that the consumption actually starts in the other advanced economies. In the initial stages, there is a possibility that there may be no production or a very lower production. So this is their production curve, right? So there you find that these are initially the imports, and because the difference between the production and the consumption is rather met through the imports, which are now coming from the initial country which has introduced the product. Now apart from that, what we'll see that in the other developing economies also there is a phase of the consumption and the production. Like we said that the companies will now go to the other economies, and once the product has become a more standardized, now what they are looking for is the standardization in the process, and in that particular process the idea is to look forward to reduction in the cost of the prices. So you are now looking for the locations where you will be able to reduce the cost of the production. As a result, what will happen is that you will now look for a cheaper locations to produce the commodity, and that is where you have seen that the countries like in the developing economies with the lower labor cost will become more prominent in the production activity. So there is a possibility that initially there is a certain amount of a consumption and no production happening, but later maybe a certain production begins to emerge. So this is the consumption and this is the production for the developing economy. So these are their initial, because of these divergences, that means these are the imports here. Okay, and here you will find now this would be the amount where the production is now more than the consumption. This is now being exported. These dashed areas, so these squared areas wherever we are making are basically the exports coming from the other developed economies and the developing economies. And there the competition in terms of prices is something which is of relevant. For instance, now let us go back to the earlier points which we have raised. So we have three classes of product: a new product, a matured product, and a product which is maturing, and then a kind of a standardized product as such. So maturing, the process is still going on. There might be certain features that might still be added, certain attributes might be removed, or maybe other variants are now being introduced before it actually becomes standardized. New is like an absolutely new kind of let us say, product which is now reaching to the market. Now, in terms of product development, you see that initially a new product will be introduced. You will find that will be a growth of that particular product selling as such, and then over a period of a time, it will reach to a maturity level. And after the initial introduction, growth, and maturity, it will become the saturated. The saturation will also emerge in the market before it can be given up. Now, in terms of internationalization, now what happens? So there will be local innovation and production, like we saw in the case of the developed economy. After that, once the product has now been standardized, you will find that the companies will rather be exporting the product to the other markets. Now it has been exported to the other markets. There is a possibility that at a later stage, the international production will begin to emerge, like we have seen in case of the other advanced economies and in case of the developing economies also. Here the focus will in fact become initially the price competition. And lastly, the initial economy which has introduced the product will rather be now importing. So here you see that the first economy which actually introduced the product was producing and exporting it for a very long time is now importing the particular product. In this case, clearly the role of the foreign direct investment becomes prominent. Like I gave you an example of Xerox, where you find that they get into maybe joint ventures, or they undertake investment in the other economies. Investment in the other economies also become prominent when you are looking for the standardization of the prices. International production also become important when you are looking for the reduction in the prices of the commodities. And then clearly here the one very important factor which also play a role is that of the patent. One can say that if the same company now takes patent across the other countries, then the commercialization in the other economies by the competitors may be rather limited. However, we have seen that when we talk about patents, definitely there are certain limitation in terms of an absolute monopoly that might be given, because there might be competing products. Moreover, there is also a lifespan given to the product regime as such. In case of a Xerox also, you see that a major competition began to emerge after their initial patent expired, which came from a Japanese company like Canon and Olivetti, like I said earlier. So clearly, this particular product model, why I'm explaining it to you in the context of a foreign direct investment and the role of multinational enterprises, because of the various dimensions related to it. First of all, this is also a very interesting model to understand the introduction of the newer products from the developing countries context. So if you think from a developing countries point of view, clearly they will get an exposure to the newer products which might be created or innovated into the other economies. After developing certain understanding of those products, the companies in the developing economies may rather develop or may get engaged into their production. They may get into some kind of a collaboration with the initial innovators. They will develop their own technological capabilities. So this is a very important model through which you can explain the development of the technological capabilities within the developing economies, which are initially at a laggard stage. They are not technological leaders in the international market. Technological leaders may be few countries, and through this particular process you find that the capabilities are now developed in the other developing economies also. Apart from that, you see that this also relate very closely to the product development, which we have talked about, the patterns of the innovation as such. Moreover, it also brings in the discussion about the patents and the role of the patents in determining the technological capabilities of the developing country, most importantly, also retaining the technological capabilities and leadership of the developed economies. Now, what will happen if you see that this process is effectively saying that over a period of a time, like we have now seen in the recent times, it may so happen that the new product need not come from only few centered. It may actually spread to the other economies, because the developing economies have established certain capabilities. As a result, the generation of new products need not be concentrated in the few pockets of the world. In order to ensure that their technological leadership is retained, developed economies has to keep running in the same place in order to maintain their position. So that means the developed economies have to continually involved in the innovation in order to maintain the leadership position that they have. In the recent times, we have also seen that this model has been critiqued a lot, and that is because of the recent developments. First of all, it does give an extremely ethnocentric explanation of the investment and how it flows from one country to another. Apart from that, in the current scenario, what we have seen that there is the lag which is involved in terms of introduction of the product into the newer market is rather reduced. What we have is basically a simultaneous introduction of the new products by the companies in various markets. Then if you now align this with the globalization of production, once again the question will arise that if that is the case, then the complete innovative product, is it possible that it will be coming and produced only in one economy, or is it that the certain components would be coming through? So clearly, as developments has happened in terms of international trade, you find that there are critiques and criticism of this particular model as well. So the next model which we will talk about, popularly called as an OLI theory, ownership, locational and internalization theory. Here, given by Dunning, they talk about the different types of ownership specific advantages which are now owned by the for certain companies which might have their operations in a country. Now, these ownership specific advantages can take a form of maybe a legally protected right, patents, brand names, trademark, commercial monopoly, acquisition of particular raw material. So what there could be different sources through which this ownership specific advantage may emerge. Now, having that ownership specific advantage will now give a confidence to the firm to reach out to the markets beyond their own national boundaries. Because if you now want to go into another economy and have to compete with their domestic firms, clearly it is required that you must have something different, something an edge over the domestic firm, because domestic firms are already operating there and they have very well understanding of the domestic market, domestic policy space, the availability, distribution channels and availability of raw material. So if they already have that kind of access to information and experience with respect to the working of a domestic economy, then for a foreign company to come and operate in this economy, they definitely need to have an edge, and that edge can come through having this particular kind of an ownership specific advantage. Maybe they know the kind of product which we have is now not being there in the market, and this is also protected through the patents. The brand name which we have is once again not something which can give us an edge over the domestic firm. So having that ownership specific advantage will give a motivation to a company to look for locations to invest. So once they decide that, okay, we want to go and invest in other economies, the next question will be where we should go and invest. There, the investment related decision will be influenced by various factors from the different countries. The location endowment, if you look at it, it will explain whether the firm will supply that market by export or by local production. Like I said earlier, that a company can become international by merely exporting. However, in order to become a multinational enterprise where you have the production look around the different countries, means that you would have to now undertake investment, foreign direct investment. Now, this particular decision, whether to merely export to that market or whether to undertake production in that market, will be determined by various factors which are now specific to the location. That is, say for instance, a company has to decide where to invest, and then they have two countries, maybe a country A and a country B. So now what they will do, they will compare maybe the infrastructure which is available in those economies, what is the transport cost, whether the raw material is available there or not, whether what is the ease of doing business in those economies, what about the tariff rates, etc. So these are the various factors which will help the company in making the final decision with respect to where to start the production or where to undertake foreign investment. So having decided the location, next question for the company would be whether the use of ownership advantage. Now they can do that by either engaging in a portfolio investment, licensing, managing contract also. So one way is definitely to go for foreign direct investment. Apart from that, they can also license, they can have the distributors that will be the merely exporting to the particular market. Now whether to internalize it, that means to undertake the production on their own, get into a joint venture, or maybe to establish their own wholly owned subsidiary in the other economy, that is to internalize, or to externalize. That means to have a licensing arrangement, or getting into some kind of a managerial contract. Now that particular decision once again will depend upon the transaction cost which is engaged in contracting, right? So what are the whether you should be able to write a particular contract, what would be the contractual terms, whether you'll be able to identify the specific party where you will be company will get into a transaction, what would be the enforcement of the contractual terms. Suppose there is a litigation, then what happens? Is the litigation in those countries fast or slow? There is involvement of a search cost. So clearly the transaction costs which are engaged in doing the externalization will be weighed against the benefits which will be accruing to that. Finally, so you will have a cost and benefits from internalization and cost and benefit from externalization, and accordingly the decision would be made. Now in context of the innovation and this particular theory, what we find that if you look at the ownership specific advantage, that can come through having an innovative product which might give motivation or confidence to the firm to go to the other economies and explore. Similarly, the role of the intellectual property right will be very prominent, because that can be one important determining factor with respect to the location as well. So you realize that these are these 2 points are embedded within this theory when you talk about the decision of the foreign firm with respect to making a decision whether to undertake investment in the another economy or not, which economy whether to make an investment, and finally what type of investment to be made. So a lot of literature and including empirical works has focused on this and tried to find out the locational factors and the factors which influences the internalization and the externalization decision of the companies. So then that is what I was talking about: exporting, licensing, or whether to go for foreign direct investment, joint venture, wholly owned subsidiaries. So these are the internalizations. This is the externalization and externalization. Licensing means granting a foreign entity the right to produce and sell the product in the foreign market and get certain royalty from them. The last theory in this context is that of a resource-based view. Here, once again, the idea is that the company may have an access to certain resources which will give them a motivation to go and invest in the other economy. So where is that resource located? So that list of the various items which can give them that kind of an edge comes from either the physical resources or from the human resources or from the organizational resources. So physical resources could be tangible assets, maybe plant, equipment, land, inventory, some intangible assets which we have already discussed in terms of a reputation, brand name, copyright, patent, etc. Human resources also very important, the kind of an skill that you may have in your own company, the education experience, the staff members. Organizational will include basically the corporate culture, organizational structure, procedures, guideline, etc. So any of those which will give you an edge and will motivate you to invest in other economies. Last point in that context for us to understand is, which will now take us to our main point, is with respect to the composition of the foreign direct investment. It is very closely related to the externalization and internalization argument that we had earlier. So we talked about the externalization in terms of the exports, right? Distributing the product in the foreign market. Apart from that, if you undertake foreign direct investment, either whatever the channel that you may choose, maybe a joint venture or maybe a wholly owned subsidiary, then you are into the production phase. Now so from a point of view of a host economy, when you talk about, then clearly distribution entails that you will now have an exposure or access to a different product which might not be available through the domestic producers in your economy. Then through the production, clearly it is a step ahead. Why? Because through the production, now the company might have to, once again, they can either go for a greenfield one or they can go for a brownfield one. Either way, there would be investment. There would be a long lasting investment. There will also be a control. As the result, like we said earlier, access to intangibles, along with the tangibles in this case, which will come in the form of the investment and in the form of the employment generation and overall income generation. So you will have the intangible, the access to that kind of a know-how, and maybe the managerial skills will come through. The last one, the higher stage of that, would be conducting the research and development in the host country. Now this research and development can be done through an in-house R&D centers within your production, or it could be done by establishing different R&D centers. And that is where now we will enter and we will talk about the internationalization of research and development. That is also the channel through which you will find that then multinational enterprises will become an important component for the national innovation system, because they help in all the factors, knowledge creation, development, as well as in the diffusion as such, by providing an access to the information technologies which will come through. Even if the companies may not be able to copy it as such, but getting an exposure to them will open their avenues for the newer development. So now for us, the next point would be to discuss what motivates the firms to undertake R&D in the other economies, what are the factors which help and support such activities, and what are the advantages to the host economy through the research and development which is conducted by the multinational enterprises.